Hello and welcome to my spoiler review for Marvel's latest big screen adventure, where it seems that maybe they might have finally gotten back on track, and that's Thunderbolts. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of my Thunderbolts coverage. For instance, just earlier today I posted my ranking of MCU female characters, highlighting the ones that Kevin Feige is getting right and the ones that maybe he could work a little harder on. And then, of course, on Sunday, we'll be talking about Thunderbolts' opening weekend box office on Movie Math, and you don't want to miss that. So like I'm saying, you might want to subscribe. All right, but right now we're doing the spoiler review, a no-holds-barred discussion of the film itself. And I think the place we should start is your burning questions, like, why is nobody mentioning Taskmaster? Well, as soon as you see the movie, you understand why. Because just moments after Taskmaster enters that bunker, she's shot point blank in the head by Ghost. Everybody got over it real quickly. We'll talk about that. But Kevin Feige, that guy, he even had them show blood oozing from the wound in her head. So you know she was dead. I mean, he has the multiverse now. It's comic books. Nobody's truly dead. But he sent a pretty strong message, giving this popular meme new meaning. Was it simply Taskmaster's time to go? Well, let's look at the evidence. So Olga Kurylenko was only allowed to attend the Los Angeles premiere. And she hasn't done any other press for the film, where there's been a lot of press. They're really working hard to promote this movie. And also, Taskmaster was digitally removed from many of the scenes that we'd seen in the trailer, where she had been in the first few trailers. Now, I've mentioned this before, and some of you were like, well, maybe she was digitally put into those scenes just for the trailers as a misdirect. That's a valid theory, but here's where it goes wrong. Why would you give up the ruse right before the movie comes out? Why not keep that up all the way through? Why not keep her in the trailers, right? Or why would you freeze out Kurylenko on the press tour? You would want, I mean, it's, and also I gotta tell you, that's such a weird time to kill her in the movie. Like, if you're gonna kill a major character, you do it in the third act, or you let Sentry kill somebody. But having Kurylenko die so quickly, I guess they were like, well, she can't not be in the movie at all because we put her in the posters and stuff like that. But it was pretty dramatic, right? I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I think something must be happening behind the scenes. But I will say that for the brief moment when Taskmaster took, like, just for a flash, like her mask retracted and then went back in, and she just quickly looked at Yelena and said, I'm not here for you, with her crazy eyes and her still horribly scarred face, I gotta tell you, I connected with her. And I still felt really, really bad for her. I mean, I thought it was amazing. And I actually kind of felt bad when she was killed. I certainly felt a lot worse than Yelena did, who was like, it happens. Yelena was like, we live a tough life. And I guess maybe, I guess on the one hand, Natasha is the one who had a deeper connection to Taskmaster, Dreykov's daughter, because she was kind of responsible for her becoming Taskmaster. But anyway, Dreykov's daughter was still kind of like their sister, I guess, to a degree, right? And she did take a moment to be like, kind of give a nod to Yelena. I mean, maybe Yelena's reaction is more about herself than about Taskmaster's death. And that's often the way reactions often work. They say, that's a famous saying, the way someone reacts says more about them than you. And maybe Yelena feels that her own days are numbered because of all the horrible things that the Black Widows have done. They got a lot of red in their ledger, right? You see the correlation. Now, how did you feel when Ghost shot Taskmaster? Okay, so the next burning question is obviously, how's Sentry? I loved Sentry. I was so impressed with him. It's interesting. You're going to see that, as you can see, Louis Pullman's pretty far down on my list. I mean, I think I liked the idea of Sentry. I liked Sentry. For me, the ranking went Sentry, the Void, and then Bob. I mean, Bob was sweet, but Sentry, wow. So I was impressed with Sentry for two reasons. One, how comics accurate he looked. I was like, wow, that looks good. To two, that he was not just incredibly powerful, but believably so. Kudos to the VFX team. I mean, if all they had in them was one Sentry scene, I'll take it. But I was really impressed. Sometimes you see an overpowered character and you just roll your eyes like, what are we going to do with that? But here with Sentry, I was scared. I was so scared he was going to kill someone, particularly when he sent Red Guardian flying out the window. Because I thought Red Guardian, at the moment this movie started, I was worried they were going to kill Red Guardian. I thought they were going to fridge him for Yelena. Luckily, they didn't. But when Sentry sent Red Guardian flying out the window at the top of Avengers Tower, I gasped out loud. But luckily, he pulled him back in. Because after all, these were his friends that he'd just made at the bunker where they'd all helped save each other. Now, kudos to Bob for mastering these new powers in less than 48 hours? But during the movie, it didn't bother me at all. I was like, yeah, he's got a natural gift. What do you want from me? Let him cook. He looks amazing. But you know what else was scary? That Val and her company, Oscorp, get it? They took the S from Oscorp and changed it to an X. Maybe it'll have something to do with the X-Men, actually. I just thought of that. Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be interesting? I thought Norman Osborn would work here, but maybe it's Mr. Sinister. Maybe they worked together. They formed a company together. I don't know. It's crazy just to change one letter. But anyway, the fact that this company was able to take a regular human and make him so powerful with not even needing an Infinity Stone, I was just really, maybe they had an Infinity Stone. Are we still doing that? Maybe, it would make sense, but I'd be like, can I see your notes on this? How'd you do this? This is incredible. It turned out so well. All the market research that they had there on how Sentry should look reminded me so much of Homelander. Because they had that exact market research in the last season of The Boys. When Homelander went to the lab that created him, they also had charts on how his hair should look in his costume. And they had those very same charts here. One of you said the term I'm looking for that I like to use all the time is yoink. And that's definitely what Kevin Feige did here. He watches The Boys and he said, I'd like that for myself. Because Oscorp is definitely very Vought coded. And then going back to Homelander, I think Sentry further mimics the character in that he too comes to the conclusion is why should he listen to anybody when he's basically a god? But you know who Sentry basically is for reals? Superman. I love it. And people have said that before, of course, in the comics. But here, Superman, of course, has the heat vision, which they had in Eternals for that Marvel character. So they took away the heat vision, and instead they added telekinesis, which, come to think of it, I think is how he's able to fly. But I think you can see why I like Sentry so much, because he has some of my favorite things. Telekinesis, which is always the superpower I say I would like myself. It's so versatile. You can do so much from flying to doing all, it's an incredible power. Putting up shields, telekinesis shields. It's an amazing power. It's the power to have. And also, as many of you know, I love me an evil Superman. So he's all those things. In fact, he was so powerful and so evil, so Homelander, that he turned on Val/Vought. Oh, both with a V. But speaking of yoink, borrowing from other entities, wouldn't you know that Val, just like Amanda Waller, has installed a bomb in Sentry's head. And she has a little button to push it off. Now, Sentry whacks it out of her hand, but he didn't count on her assistant Mel picking it up and pushing the button. And his head goes boom. Well, it was really a cool shot, actually. It was very quick. His head didn't explode, but you saw the blood in his head and probably some of his brains kind of explode into his eyes, but it didn't come out the front of his head. I think they didn't want to totally destroy his head because he had to come back then as the Void. So yeah, that's the end of Sentry. Just one scene, but one glorious scene. And if that's all they could afford to do with Sentry, then I'm glad they did pour it all into one scene so that it's the banger that it is. But I really wish they could have afforded just one more sequence. Bring him back just a little bit, please. But who knows when he's coming back, because it's revealed at the very end of the movie, in the final post-credit scene, that Bob doesn't want to even be Sentry anymore because he's afraid that will only lead to him becoming the Void. So he's benched himself. And I'm like, come on, dude, you're too cool to bench. How do I feel about the Void? Is the Void as cool as Sentry? No, he's not. He's not at all. But he's still kind of cool. He certainly looks cool. But his only real power or interest seems to be to suck people into his therapy escape room complex. And the only way that you can get out is through the power of friendship. Aww. It worked for this movie, but it's comics accurate. In the comics, the Void could deploy tendrils. So when they touched you, kind of like if you touch Bob, and I guess that's good because it only makes it a close range power in the MCU. But when you touch the Void, it shows you traumatic experiences from your past, present, and future They don't do the future in this movie. I think that's a great idea. That's very Dickensian, Ghost of Christmas Future. Like, if these shadows will not remain unchanged if you don't change, or something like that. I mean, I think that's a really good idea. And I almost do wish they had used it here. You know, it's interesting. Like, I guess it's good to leave your audience wanting more, but yet you don't want them to be unsatisfied either. It's a fine line. I don't feel unsatisfied though, but I definitely want more. And I guess where I am frustrated, that's the right word to use. I'm frustrated because I know that we are not going to get a Thunderbolts 2. I know that we're going to roll right into Fantastic Four and the Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. And that's frustrating to me that, this team isn't going to get that moment, which is why I said that them being the new Avengers, we're going to talk about it, but that really should have been either the third act of this movie or its own film. But if it can't be its own film, it should have been the third act of this film. We're going to get to that, but I'm frustrated. All right, so in the comics, the Void can also shapeshift, which is why it took him a while to figure out that Bob / Sentry and the Void were the same entity. Here you're like, it's just you and Shadow, Bob. But the Void, in his shapeshifting, was almost like a not ghost from this movie, but a ghost, and that it could do anything it wanted to sell the illusion, right? So if it imagines itself as something, that had a superpower, it could deliver on that. And I guess because the Void flies here, again, that's, I guess, the telekinesis, it does technically have all of Sentry's abilities, but it just, again, isn't interested in using them. It just wants to, collect souls for its therapy escape room complex. And it was a cool effect with the shadows, but I think knowing that everyone's going to be able to come right back as they do, I think robs it a little bit of its power. But it is a Marvel movie, so what else do you expect? They're never going to go that dark. It was cool to see Yelena tearing through her own dark past when she was in the Void, mostly in the Red Room. I wish I could have seen some of the missions she'd done. I'm sure she has some regrets there as well. But then she finds Bob in his safe space, from his childhood. He had a very troubled childhood, and you can hear his parents arguing. But eventually, the entire Thunderbolts team joins them. We don't get to see their interactions within the Void. You do a little bit earlier in the movie with John Walker, and we'll talk about that. But otherwise, you only see them when they join up with Yelena and Bob. And that maybe, like, if you're gonna just do this for the third act, then let's do everybody. Like, I would have loved to see what Bucky saw. But then they have their final showdown with the Void in the lab where Sentry was created, where, what do you know? It was the lab in Malaysia that Yelena is sent to wipe out at the beginning of the movie. That's where they were working on the Sentry project. And they win by letting Bob know that he is not alone. Not only that they have him as friends, but also that he's not alone in how he's feeling. And that is really beautiful. That's a beautiful sentiment. But I don't think saving the day through the power of friendship and a hug really totally cuts it in a big superhero movie. But maybe it does for you. I mean, what do you think? You can see that creative Grace and business Grace are struggling here. And that's good. That's good. They're fighting. They're like, oh, but it's so poignant. Oh, but am I going to sell enough tickets and repeat business? And I guess that's good. That's the relationship that's supposed to exist in Hollywood. And I think the movie's great the way it is, but I want to change it a little bit. So let me discuss. So I guess I just would have added to it. So let me explain. So I think it depends on what you think the purpose of this movie is. If you think it's primarily an exploration of mental health, then that is the perfect third act sequence. But that's not what it is, because it also has to function. I mean, it is in some ways, but just like Bob, I guess this movie has a duality. It can be a wonderful story about mental illness, but it also needs to deliver as a $180 to $200 million budget blockbuster that's supposed to move the MCU forward. And so I think that they should have moved this sequence of, freeing Bob from the Void to the midpoint of the movie. And then they should have become the new Avengers and then fought a new villain with Sentry in hand for the climax of the film. I just think that I would have kept the film exactly as it is, to be honest with you. I just would have added another 30 minutes or so to the film, which would have put it at around 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is long, but by the way, the same length as the new Mission Impossible movie. And I think this movie earned that length. I think it has its audience. I think people really connect with this movie. I mean, would you have been like, oh, too long, I'm out? Or you've been like, yes, give me more. And it's interesting to me because this is from the people who did Beef. the writer and the director, a streaming series where they have a lot more time to tell a story. And I feel almost that they needed more time here, that it's a skill to be able to tell a story in under 2 hours, particularly these days, because we're all used to getting 8 to 10 hour stories. So I think the way movies can truly compete with streaming is to be longer. And I think this movie needed another 30 minutes to with them being the new Avengers. I think that would have made it perfect. I mean, it's very good as it is, but I think that would have made it as good business-wise as it is creatively. But this is what they came up with. So they tacked on at the very end of the movie the longest post-credit scene that Marvel has ever done at a little under 3 minutes. Like, it's basically 3 minutes. It's like 2 minutes and 54 seconds or something. And that's where the real MCU goodies are to give you that MCU adrenaline rush. And you know, it's effective. It's the very end of the movie. It's the last thing you see if you remember to stick around. I feel bad. Did you forget to watch the end credit scenes? What did you think of the movie having not seen the post-credit scene? But maybe they should have made it some people missed the mid-credit scene on Sinners, which is essentially part of the movie. And I would argue that this post-credit scene is truly part of the movie. But I think it's still effective in giving you that MCU adrenaline rush that you're looking for when you see these movies. And having that connectivity. So again, I'm going to be doing a separate video to really break down this post-credit scene and the comics history and everything like that. But here are the broad strokes. So we see the Thunderbolts are now the Avengers, complete with a new uniform. They all wear the same uniform, all black with a red A on it. They look great. They look fantastic. Now, Sam Wilson, aka Captain America, doesn't actually show up, which I think is kind of uncool. I think that he should have at least shown up in some capacity, even as like on a television screen being interviewed on the news or something. But it turns out he's suing them for the use of the name Avengers, because they're now calling themselves the Avengers. And then they detect an incoming spacecraft and they bring it up on the screen, speaking of the screen, and it's the Fantastic Four spaceship. Oh, and that's the post-credit scene. That's the moment they leave you on. The spaceship kind of twists. I mean, we all recognize it from the trailers, but then you see the 4 on it, and the audience goes, "Woo! See you in like 2 months, Marvel!" And that's what Marvel's hoping is your response. I really liked how Val tricked them into joining her press conference, backing up through a tarp, and then on the other side were all these journalists. I thought that was great. And then, like a really good villain, Val wins them over by giving the Thunderbolts what they all really want deep down, and that's the chance to be heroes. To be the good guys, to be Avengers, right? And also the validity that goes along with that. No longer having to survive in the shadows, but to thrive in a newly refurbished Avengers Tower, now owned by Oxcorp. The only person I'm surprised who took the deal was Bucky, who, after his Winter Soldier experience, has always really stood his ground, morally. And he's also now a congressman, so it's not like he doesn't have, he's got the added oomph of not only being a superhero, but a congressman. But I guess his history as a Hydra assassin is, not great. He still got elected, though. But I guess he feels it's better to fight the system from the inside than from outside it. But I wish that they had, I don't know, Bucky just seemed, there was so little Bucky here. He was just kind of like, they were like, "Oh, and Bucky." And you were like, "Well, is Bucky going to say that?" And they're like, "No, but he's there. Just remember that he's there." And that's enough. And you're like, is it? All right, why the asterisk on the Thunderbolts name? A lot of you have been asking me about that, and we can finally discuss it. And that's because I think it's only a temporary name. I think that's why they have it there. Because by the end of the movie, they're the new Avengers. That's what they're calling themselves, but it's actually the Dark Avengers. And again, we're going to discuss that in that second video. As for where the Thunderbolts name comes from, in the comics, I think sometimes it's referred as coming from General Thaddeus Ross, whose nickname is Thunderbolt. But here, the idea is that back when she and Red Guardian were part of that undercover family, in the Black Widow movie when they were all younger, Yelena was on a childhood soccer team. And that soccer team was called the Thunderbolts. I guess it is a really good sign that my biggest problem with Thunderbolts is that I don't get to spend more time with this team. I'm surprised how much I liked this team, and I liked them from the get-go. I liked them as soon as they came together. The banter is so good. And when you compare it to, say, the team banter in Age of Ultron, it's like night and day. Like the Age of Ultron banter is very like generic superhero, right? Like, oh, hello, chum, and we got to make sure we do this. Like, they don't seem like real people. And in Thunderbolts, they do seem like real, flawed, relatable people who are just trying to figure things out, like what they can do, how they can work together. And, they're a little crabby, they have their guards up. I mean, I just thought it was extremely well done. And I didn't think that anybody was like a jerk, which was really nice. I was like, it's pretty good for all people who are supposed to, at least at some point in their lives, been bad guys. Again, it is Marvel. Maybe they should have had one jerk. What a contrast to the Penguin series when you think about it, right? But yeah, they all were like really nice people, right? All right, so I figured out moments before it was revealed in the film itself what Val was up to, that she'd actually sent everybody there to kill each other, and they all were tasked with killing somebody else. And I thought that was a pretty good setup. And then she would incinerate the bunker with all the incriminating evidence that was left for Oxcorp, and also their dead bodies. That was a pretty good plan, Val. Although it was funny when her assistant was like, do you think maybe they might have all teamed up against you? I thought they had them chipped maybe, and they were like, well, they're all huddled in a group, and they seem to be having like a team huddle. And it's like, uh-oh. I thought that was good, though. I would say that the bunker sequence was my favorite in the entire film. I just really liked it. Coming into the bunker, all their fighting, then having to escape the bunker, and then having to get past Oxcorp. That to me is what I'm looking forward to seeing the most when I am planning to see the film again. And I have to be honest with you, largely for that sequence and also the Sentry sequence. Those are the things I'm the most excited to see again. Highlights for the bunker sequence are definitely trying to figure out how to get up the elevator shaft. Too bad Bob didn't know he could fly yet, but that was hilarious. I thought that was just really funny. Their attack plan, when they took on Oxcorp at first, not going exactly as they'd wanted because of electrical issues. Oh, the realism, I love it. And then here's something else which I think the movie did really well. They were able to make the audience feel the tension of, and then the relief if one of the people would come back, or if they go with their villainous nature and abandon them. Like with Ghost and John Walker and all these times, you'd be like, okay, you go out there and come back and help the rest of us. And you're like, but they're a villain. Are they going to come back? And so you were on pins and needles each time. We should have known. We should have been like, well, then how are we going to have the movie if they don't come back? But I was nervous. I was like, oh, she's got to come back, or he's got to come back, right? And then when the person did come back, just like the characters in the movie, I felt this wave of like, maybe we can do it. Maybe people are nice. And so that was really, really clever, the way the script was able to have that not only in the film, but to recreate that feeling for the audience. And then I also liked from afar when the team, as they were driving away, saw Bob fly for the first time, which was like a reactionary response that he had. He didn't even know what he was doing or how he was doing it. And then he just shot up into the night sky. And it was kind of beautiful because they all wanted to be someone who could fly, right? They were like, oh, I wish we were cooler, better heroes. And then Bob is like, Bob is. Well, it turns out, we'll see what path Bob ultimately follows the Sentry and also, I guess, the Void. But that moment of like, Bob did it, was just really great. I loved it. And then, of course, he fainted and fell back to Earth. But it was a really beautiful moment. And then I even liked it when Val, was complimenting her assistant Mel on Mel's ability to provide her a cup of coffee that was really good no matter where they were. That was great. And then Val, who was she was feeling a lot better at this point because looks like the Sentry program had worked. And maybe things weren't going to be maybe things will work out for her after all. And as they're drinking coffee, they're boxing up poor Bob and taking him off to New York. I told you, evil Selena Meyer. Although some of you, when I said that in my non-spoiler review, some of you said Selena Meyer herself was evil. What? I didn't watch that. I didn't watch every season of Veep, but I watched a lot of it. And I always got the impression that she was more of a, maybe let's say, Don Draper type, who I would not describe as actually evil. Another reason that the bunker sequence is so important is that it actually is what saves their lives. Because down the line, when Val tells Sentry to kill them, he's like, they're my friends. He says, they're not a threat to me. Why would I kill them? But I think it's because they're his friends. So that's great. And he forms a particularly strong bond with Yelena, who looks out for him during the bunker sequence because no one, including Bob, knows how powerful he actually is. That was very sweet of Yelena. I wonder if Yelena suspects he was experimented on. John Walker does see the box that Bob comes out of, in the bunker. And I think maybe she relates to him because she herself was a weapon created by the system. And that's exactly what Sentry is. However, their bond also reminded me of, and I'd be curious if any of you drew the same comparison, to Natasha and Bruce's bond in Age of Ultron. I don't know if I see a romantic spark there. I see maybe a little one. They don't have to necessarily go in that direction. They could just be really good friends. But I guess maybe because also Natasha and Bruce had a romantic relationship, although Joss Whedon made that one creepy. But anyway, Natasha was the only one who could get through to Bruce in Hulk form. And here, Yelena is the only one who can get through to Sentry and the Void. So let's talk about the characters in the movie in depth. Let's go into each of them in order of my favorites. So number one is Yelena. She is the heart and soul of the team and the heart and soul of the movie. She's fantastic here. After watching Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow have to always be on the sidelines for like over a decade, it's really nice to see Yelena basically leading this team. And she does a really nice job. I thought she was great. I think her secret weapon as a leader is that she thinks of everyone around her as a person. She's like almost like, she's very similar, but also very different from Sam Wilson. You know, like I think Sam Wilson has high expectations, and Yelena is like, has rock bottom expectations, but I think they're both very compassionate and understanding. I'd always thought that maybe it would be Captain Marvel and Sam Wilson, but now just like it was Steve and Natasha, I'm thinking maybe Yelena and Sam as maybe, you know, a good team, and maybe Avengers team leaders. Maybe they'll combine the two Avengers teams into one. Maybe that would be a very big team, but they've had big teams before. Anyway, I just think, she treats everyone like she would like to be treated, and she's honest and open to suggestions, and she certainly has ideas of her own, and she also knows a good idea when she sees it from someone else. I thought she just did a really nice job here. And Florence Pugh looks amazing in this movie. I mean, I can't speak for every group, but I can say from my perspective, from a female perspective, she is a fantastic heroine. I think she's going to gain a lot of fans from this film. I mean, I can't believe she didn't have a ton of fans already, but hopefully this will really shoot her to the top. Almost, I think, to Wanda levels of likability. And kudos to Pugh for being able to be, I think, look really fantastic, even though she's covered head to toe in very loose military fatigues. That's, I think, a really nice example to set for everybody out there. Like, there are many different ways to come across as looking fantastic. And she really does. And she just knows how to carry herself and looks fabulous in almost every shot that she has in the film. She's playing a character that has almost no self-confidence, but you can see that the actress, Florence Pugh, has a lot of self-confidence and also a lot of self-awareness, which is unusual to see in actresses in particular. And so I think it really makes Pugh an impressive force on screen. Also, I just read an article where Pugh was talking about having learned over the years when and how she looks her best and making sure that she speaks up for herself, advocates for herself to make sure that those lessons she's learned are used in going forward. Not only in photo shoots, which I think was what the context of the article was, but I'm sure also in her film performances. And she also speaks about how it's an actress's job in comparison to a model's job to convey emotion and connect with the camera up close and therefore the audience. And to hear Pugh talking like that, you can see that she's taken those skills and she's using them in her acting, not just as she's discussing there on red carpets. And you can really see the difference. Then, I gotta tell you, I really liked Val. That's right, number 2, baby! And I love that these two women have been on a collision course since the post-credit scene, speaking of post-credit scenes, of Black Widow. That's the kind of callback, the kind of connective tissue, the building that is what made the MCU what it is in the first place. It's the secret sauce. They've been serving us dry movies and shows. This one's plenty juicy. And also, so Val touches the Void, and that's another element. So, she touches Bob. So the Void can fully pull you into his therapy room, right? And you can't get out, or, you can, but it's very difficult. But if you touch just Bob, you're kind of like momentarily pulled into that space. Like you just dip a toe into it and you can be shaken out of it by someone who's around you. But it's always with Bob. That's going to make life tough for Bob. So that's always a part of what's going on with him. So anyway, Val accidentally touches, She doesn't know what's going to happen. So she's trying, I like that she's like, she gets all dressed up and she's like, she says, does she look motherly enough? Right? To try and be soothing to Bob. And so she's trying to comfort him and she touches him and bam, she's pulled back into her past. And what I love is that we discover she's not that much different from Yelena. They both come from Europe. Yelena, obviously Russia, Eastern Europe. But I thought, Yelena, I was getting kind of like, what vibe were you getting? I almost felt maybe it was Italy. I'm not sure, but it was a time when there was an oppressive government, right? And Val's father was actually a revolutionary. And as a child, she had accidentally given away their location where they were hiding, and she sees her father taken in, and I would suspect she never saw him again. That's fascinating. I would love to know why Val then decided to go and join an oppressive organization, to join the government, to join Oxcorp. Like, what made her say, I'm going to go be on the other side, the side that took my father? That's fascinating to me. But even just this little bit of backstory and Julia Louis-Dreyfus's acting, the way she acted, the way she reacted to touching Bob and what she saw, I thought really humanized the character. She seems like a real complex person instead of a cartoonish villain. And you gotta admire Val's ability to survive. Like, she was just moments away from getting a one-way ticket to join former President Ross on the raft. But then she positions herself as the leader of the new Avengers, and I'm sure she's saying the only one who can control them. She obviously, I think she can't control them in the moment, but knowing Val, I'm sure she'll think of something. Next, John Walker, aka U.S. Agent. I was shocked at how much he brought to the team dynamic. I think he's like the Tony Stark of the team in terms of snark. And like Tony Stark, he's very snarky, but deep down he's a good guy, or at least he'd like to be. I mean, hey, there were plenty of times when he could have abandoned the team, but he always came back to help. I liked his void sequence. I thought it was very effective. Moments earlier, someone had made a crack about, you're Norman Rockwell style family. We don't all have that. But then we discover that he messed it up. He had it, but he lost it. Because he was he was doom scrolling. Robert Downey Jr. was like, yes, that's me. But he was doom scrolling and through all the negative coverage of him as U.S. agent. And it just bothered him so much that that's interesting. He lost what he thought he'd always wanted, but then he lost what he truly had always wanted and what he had. Well, yeah, like he thought, yeah, that's it. Like he'd always wanted to be Captain America and he thought he had it and he lost it. But I think losing his family was the even bigger thing that happened. And it happened when he wasn't even realizing it because he was so lost in the other loss. So yeah, and then after that, we find out Val reveals that his wife actually left him and took their child with her. So he's just been totally abandoned. And I think that makes him that really humanizes him. And it makes him just a great character because he doesn't understand why, when he's trying so hard, that things still aren't working out for him. Even though that we, from the outside looking in, can clearly see where he's making mistakes. And I think that's not only a very common, but a relatable situation. And I think it's done very well here. I also liked when Sentry turned John's shield into a taco, and then he just had to go with it. You're like, I don't think you can throw that. Although in the post-credit scenes with all like the news coverage of the new Avengers, he was riding it like a horsey. Then I gotta say Red Guardian. Everyone loves David Harbour. He's such a sweetheart. But the only reason he's not higher up on my list here is that this routine he has is getting a little old. Right? I mean, he seems really useless in the field. Like, isn't he supposed to be at least a shade of Captain America? Like, he does have super strength in one of the sequences. He holds up like a falling piece of concrete. But obviously his real power in the MCU is super heart. And that's very charming. But I'd give him a little bit more. Like, I think Red Guardian should have more to do in the field. Right now, he's coming across as like, it's like we're back on Yelena's childhood soccer team and her dad wants to coach the team even though he has no experience. So who cares? It's not that big a deal. Let's let him play coach. And that's what this feels like. And I don't know. I would like to, and that's kind of clever actually, but I prefer to try and maybe legitimize Red Guardian's inclusion just a little bit more. Next, I have Ghost, who interestingly has the exact opposite problem of Red Guardian, where she really deserves to be there in the field, but doesn't have enough lines or character development. But when she's in the field, wow. Her powers are so cool. They're used so incredibly well here. They look cool and they sound cool. I was like, oh, shimmer, baby, shimmer. Never got tired of it. As I said in my non-spoiler review, she really levels up this team and, takes them beyond just point and shoot. And in a comic book movie, I think that's really, because you want the action sequences to be interesting visually, and she adds that. Then I would put Lewis Pullman's Bob. And it's like, what? Why is he so low down? You love Sentry. I do love Sentry, but I'm not sure how I feel about Bob. Like, he's a really important part of many sequences, and I really like his connection with Yelena, but he just has less personality than everybody else. This is a movie full of strong personalities, and Bob doesn't have one. I definitely want to see Sentry again, but Bob didn't really make an impression on me. And then finally, Bucky, who's dead last because he's hardly in this movie. He doesn't have a lot of lines, and he has very few action sequences, and those lines and action sequences are undercut by being almost all already seen in the trailers because they've been using Bucky to sell a film that he's not really in. So you're like, oh, that's, I don't know how I would have reacted to it if I just got to see it in the movie because it was in the trailers and stuff like that. I guess one of my reactions was that he was on the motorcycle, which again was in the trailers, but I was like, if only this was an extended motorcycle sequence. I mean, if there's one thing Bucky loves to do, it's ride the heck out of a motorcycle. He actually spends most of his time trying to convince Val's assistant Mel to be a double agent. And I thought it was crazy that Mel thought Val wouldn't eventually find out what she was doing. Like, did she make that last call? I believe she did, to Bucky inside Oscorp's Avengers Tower. Like, go outside at least and walk a couple of blocks away. And Mel, are you using your own actual phone? Have you never heard of a burner phone? I mean, I know she wasn't a professional spy, but did she watch movies and streaming shows? Clearly, Val let Mel continue to inform Bucky of what was going on, though, because she felt Sentry would kill him when he got there. But then it still worked out okay anyway, because Val ended up having a former Avenger, or one of the original Avengers, and a congressman on her new superhero team. And that's my spoiler review for Thunderbolts, where it's ironic that this movie is having such a big problem marketing-wise, because the characters are not well known, but yet the characters are the true strength of the film and what make it worthwhile. I think maybe this movie and Captain America 4 or maybe Fantastic Four should have switched places. Maybe Thunderbolts should have been in February. Maybe Thunderbolts should have been in the end of July. Really, speaking of Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy, groups of misfits, this really is a beginning of August movie. But here it is, kicking off the summer movie season, and that puts a lot of unfair pressure on it to deliver that type of movie, even though it is a smaller film. But maybe, fingers crossed, it might actually end up working in its favor because it has tremendous word of mouth, and the reviews have been incredible. And as the summer movie season gets started, maybe people will just want to go to the movies. They'll want to go out and have a good time, and they'll decide maybe to give this movie a chance after all. All right, so we'll see on Sunday how it does at the box office on Movie Math. I'll see you there. In the meantime, be sure to share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.